What if I told you that a quarter sitting in your pocket right now could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars? It sounds impossible, but collectors are actively hunting for specific quarters from 1988 that most people spend without a second thought. These aren't just any quarters. They're coins with hidden errors and special characteristics that transform ordinary pocket change into numismatic treasures. The 1988 quarter might seem unremarkable at first glance. After all, millions upon millions were minted that year across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But here's where things get interesting. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 562 million quarters in 1988, while Denver added another 596 million to circulation. Yet despite these massive numbers, certain 1988 quarters have sold for jaw-dropping prices at auction. One particularly stunning example, graded in perfect MS 68 condition, sold for over $3,500. Yes, you read that correctly. $3,500 for a 25-cent coin. So what makes these 1988 quarters so special? The answer lies in the details that most people never notice. First, there's the matter of mint state perfection. Finding a 1988 quarter that survived nearly 4 decades without a single scratch, bag mark, or sign of wear is like finding a needle in a haystack. These coins need to exhibit full, frosty luster with sharp, crisp details on Washington's profile and the eagle on the reverse. The lettering must be perfectly struck, and the fields, those flat areas of the coin, need to be pristine and mirror-like. But perfect grades aren't the only thing collectors seek. The real excitement comes from the errors and varieties that escape the mint's quality control. Have you ever examined the lettering on your quarters closely? Some 1988 quarters exhibit dramatic doubling on the words Liberty or In God We Trust. This doubling happens when the die strikes the coin multiple times with slight shifts, creating a shadowy, doubled effect that collectors absolutely love. A 1988 P quarter with strong doubling on these inscriptions can easily fetch $200 to $500, depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling. Then there are the off-center strikes. Picture this, a quarter where Washington's face is pushed dramatically to one side, with part of the design missing entirely. These happen when the blank planchet wasn't properly seated in the collar before striking. The more dramatic the off-center strike while still showing the date, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1988 quarter that's 40% off-center but still shows the complete date can sell for $300 or more. Wrong planchet errors are even rarer and more valuable. Occasionally, a quarter die would strike a dime planchet by mistake, creating a quarter design on a smaller, lighter coin. These extraordinary errors from 1988 have sold for over $2,000 when authenticated by professional grading services. Imagine finding one of those in your change jar. The 1988 S-proof quarters deserve special mention. These were specially made for collectors at the San Francisco Mint, struck multiple times with polished dies to create mirror-like fields and frosted devices. While regular proofs from 1988 are fairly common, the ones graded PR, 70 deep cameo, absolutely perfect with maximum contrast, have sold for over $400. Not bad for a coin that originally sold for a few dollars in a proof set. Here's something most people don't realize. The copper-nickel clad composition of 1988 quarters sometimes separated during striking, creating dramatic cut errors or split planchets. These lamination errors expose the copper core in unusual patterns, making each one unique. Collectors pay premium prices for these unusual pieces, often $100 to $300, depending on the size and location of the error. The key to finding these valuable 1988 quarters is knowing what to look for. Check the mint mark first. It's a small letter on the right side of Washington's neck. P is for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco proofs. Then examine the coin under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass. Look for any doubling in the lettering, unusual marks, or anything that seems different from a standard quarter. Even slight varieties that seem insignificant can add tremendous value. Professional grading makes all the difference in value. A 1988 quarter that looks pretty good to you might grade MS 65, worth perhaps $30. But if it grades MS 67, suddenly it's worth $300. And that magical MS 68 grade? That's when you're talking thousands. The grading services like PeaceGS and NGC examine these coins under powerful magnification, evaluating every tiny detail to assign precise grades that collectors trust. The market for high-grade 1988 quarters remains surprisingly strong. Registries set collectors, those building complete sets of the highest graded coins, compete fiercely for top examples. When two collectors want the same MS 68 quarter for their collection, auction prices can skyrocket beyond all reasonable expectations. It's this competition that drives those seemingly crazy prices you see in auction results. But wait until you hear about what happened 10 years earlier with the 1978 quarters. The story of these coins involved a fascinating production change that created varieties so subtle yet so valuable that even experienced collectors sometimes miss them. The year 1978 marked a subtle but significant change at the U.S. Mint that most Americans never noticed, yet it created one of the most sought-after varieties in modern quarter collecting. While everyone was worried about gas prices and disco music, the Philadelphia Mint quietly modified their dies, creating two distinct varieties of quarters that year. Today, one of these varieties can be worth 50 times more than the other, and you might have one without even knowing it. Here's what happened. The Mint decided to redesign the reverse die to better fill the design elements, particularly around the eagle's breast feathers. This created what collectors now call the Type 1 and Type 2 varieties. The Type 1 quarters, struck early in 1978, show distinct separation between the eagle's breast feathers. You can see clear lines defining each feather. The Type 2 quarters, which came later, have breast feathers that appear more solid and merge together. It's a tiny difference, but in the world of coin collecting, tiny differences can mean huge profits. Finding a 1978 Type 1 quarter in pristine condition is like striking gold. While a regular 1978 P quarter in MS 65 condition might sell for $25, a Type 1 variety in the same grade commands $150 or more. Push that grade up to MS 67, and you're looking at $1,500 to $2,000. The record price? A 1978 P-Type 1 quarter graded MS 67 plus sold at Heritage Auctions for an astounding $4,200. Think about that. Over $4,000 for a quarter that spent 45 years hiding in plain sight. But the varieties are just the beginning of the 1978 quarter story. The Denver Mint produced its own share of valuable errors that year. Some of the most dramatic are the clipped planchets, quarters that are literally missing a piece, as if someone took a bite out of them. These happen when the blanks were punched too close to the edge of the metal strip. A 1978 D quarter with a significant curved clip, showing 15% or more of the coin missing, can easily bring $75 to $150 from error collectors. Then there are the 1978 quarters struck on wrong planchets entirely. The Philadelphia Mint documented cases where quarter dies struck nickel planchets meant for 5-cent pieces. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare and valuable. One authenticated example sold for $1,800 at a major auction. The coin is obviously wrong. It's the size and weight of a nickel, but carries the complete quarter design. How these escaped the Mint is anyone's guess, but collectors are grateful they did. Double die varieties from 1978 are particularly interesting because they're often subtle enough that non-collectors miss them entirely. Look closely at the words United States of America on the reverse. Some 1978 quarters show clear doubling in these letters, especially noticeable in the word America. Under magnification, you'll see what appears to be a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main letters. These double die reverses from 1978 can add $100 to $400 to a quarter's value, depending on the strength of the doubling. Have you checked your 1978 quarters for the filled D variety? This happened at the Denver Mint when grease or debris filled the D mint mark during striking. Instead of a clear, hollow D, These quarters show what looks like a solid blob where the mint mark should be. While not as valuable as major errors, these filled mint mark varieties still sell for $20 to $50 in circulated condition and much more in mint state grades. The proof quarters from San Francisco in 1978 tell their own fascinating story. The San Francisco Mint struck just over 3 million proof quarters that year. But here's the kicker. Some of them are Type 1 and some are Type 2. The Type 1 proofs are significantly scarcer and more valuable. A 1978 S-Type 1 proof in perfect PR 70 deep cameo condition has sold for over $600, while the Type 2 in the same grade brings only about $75. That's an eightfold difference in value for what looks like the same coin to most people. Condition is absolutely critical with 1978 quarters. The difference between an MS-66 and an MS-67 can be hundreds or even thousands of dollars. These coins need to maintain their original mint luster, that cartwheel effect you see when you tilt the coin under light. Any contact marks, even tiny ones invisible to the naked eye, could drop the grade and slash the value. This is why finding high-grade examples in circulation is so unlikely, but so rewarding when it happens. The market dynamics for 1978 quarters are fascinating. Unlike modern coins that are saved in huge quantities, many 1978 quarters went straight into circulation. People didn't think to save them. They weren't silver, they weren't commemoratives, they were just quarters. This means that truly pristine examples are much scarcer than you'd expect for a coin that's only 45 years old. Here's a pro tip that most casual collectors don't know. Check the edge reading on your 1978 quarters. Sometimes the reading is partially missing or doubled, creating what's called a railroad rim error. These happen during the upset mill process before striking. A 1978 quarter with partial or missing reading can bring $50 to $200, depending on how dramatic the error is. Authentication is crucial with 1,978 varieties and errors. The difference between a genuine Type 1 variety and a Type 2 can be subtle enough that even experienced collectors debate it. Having your coin certified by PCGS or NGC not only confirms its authenticity, but also provides a professional grade that buyers trust. The $30 to $50 grading fee is a small price to pay when you're potentially sitting on a $1,000 coin. The 1978 quarter represents a perfect storm of collectability, varieties that are challenging to identify, errors that escape quality control, and enough time passed that high-grade examples have become genuinely scarce. Whether it's the Type 1 variety, a dramatic error, or simply a pristine example that somehow avoided circulation for over 4 decades, these quarters prove that treasure hunting doesn't require a metal detector. Sometimes, the treasure is already in your pocket, waiting to be discovered.